Hi everybody, this is Maureen Wong from mycasestudies.blogspot.com. Today I'm going to show you how easy it is to do masking with your MISTI. And previous to getting my MISTI, I wasn't a huge fan of masking. I would much prefer to fussy cut things out or die cut things out and layer them on top of each other rather than actually masking off and stamping things over other things. But now that I have my MISTI and I figured out how to do it, it's actually really easy. The hardest part is cutting out the masks, the fussy cutting out the masks, and Jennifer McGuire just had a video about using rubber cement as a masking fluid, and if you do that, then you don't even have to fussy cut out masks, and then that makes the process even more simple. So today I'm going to show you how I combined these 4 images to make what looks like one stamped image. The 4 are the bow, the bunny, the cupcake top, and the cupcake bottom. Okay, so my first step is I took a piece of scratch paper and I made a plan for how I'm going to want this stamped out. And I'm using 2 sets from Mama Elephant called Carnival Cupcakes and Carnival Toppers, and I put these 4 stamps, I stamped out the 4 stamps how I want them to be layered, and I didn't bother masking it because that's the whole point. It's just a rough draft kind of plan for how I'm going to be doing my stamping later. And the other thing I did in advance was on a piece of Post-it, I cut the masks that I'm going to need, the bow and the bottom of the bunny. The cupcake liner is actually designed to perfectly fit that cupcake top, so I don't need to mask anything off there. But I definitely do need a mask for the bow and then for the bunny. So let me zoom out and we'll get started. So what I did after I made my plan was I did just a really rough cut around it to get us a better idea of what finish the size would be and what I wanted to stamp it on. And I chose a circle that is just slightly larger than my stamped image. And stamping on a circle seems like it's going to be more difficult because it's one more step. You have to mount it to something that has corners that we can stick in our MISTI, but it's not a big deal really. But if you want to just use a rectangle or a square of cardstock, stamp your image first and then cut it out with your circle die, that would also be one way to do it. But what I did was, in a previous video I showed how I have these gridded templates from Amazon or Joann, and in the pack it came with 4 of the gridded templates and 2 blank ones. And they are 8.5 by 11 sheets, so that cuts up perfectly. I took one of the blank ones and cut it up into A2 size pieces. So you can get 4 of those out of 1 blank sheet. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the circle that I decided on and I'm just going to put some ATG adhesive on the back. And you want to make sure you put enough to stick this down that it's not going to move. And I'm just going to stick it right in the middle of that clear template. And then I'm going to need another template for my plan. I'm going to be using my plan to actually position where my stamps are going to go. So I want to place it, and I'm using another piece of that A2 plain template placed exactly over the other one, and I'm going to position my plan where I want it on the circle, and I've already got ATG adhesive on the back of that. You want to make sure also that this is stuck down firmly and that it's not going to move. So what we use this for is positioning our stamps. And the thing you need to do before you start stamping is figure out what order you need to stamp things in. And in this picture, I'm gonna stamp the bow first. So I'm gonna get the bow stamp, and then I'm going to position it right on top of those lines that I stamped earlier, because I want it to stamp exactly there. So I put that down, pick it up with my MISTI cover, remove the plan, and then always make sure that you're in the corner, wedged in the corner. Anytime you stick down something and lift up the cover, it could move your piece, so always make sure that it's stuck down in the corner. And then I'm going to use my Memento Tuxedo black ink and stamp that down. And Memento is not my favorite ink for stamping, but it kind of is, because it's compatible with Copic markers and it's really fast drying, which is good for using with colored pencils. And after I'm done coloring it, I'm going to come back in and overstamp all of my stamps with VersaFine Onyx Black. So I don't want to move my stamps from where they are. What I could do is take this right now and color it, and then overstamp it, and then take off the stamp. But it's easier for me to just leave it. So my next stamp is going to be the bunny. Wait, let me mask off the bow. My next stamp is going to be the bunny. And I cannot put the bunny down here because the ear is overlapping the bow. So what I'm going to do is move my piece up to the top corner, get my plan, and then position my bunny exactly over those stamped lines. And pick it up with my MISTI cover and put my plan to the side. And then same thing, you want to make sure your piece is firmly nestled in that corner, and then we're going to ink up the bunny and stamp it down. Now, of course, I'm not worrying about whether or not I get a really nice image at this point, because like I said, I'm going to come in after I do the coloring and overstamp everything with the VersaFine. So at this point, I just want good guidelines that I can use to color. So now that the bunny is stamped, we need our bunny mask. And for the bunny mask, I just cut out the bottom of his hands and feet, because that's all that's going to be stamped over. And then I get my cupcake top stamp, and once again it's going to overlap the bunny, so I can't stamp it here. So I'm going to move it back down to the bottom, get my plan in place again, and then I'm going to position the cupcake top exactly over that line. And you can see here that because I alternated the placement of the piece for the different stamps, I have enough room between my bow and my cupcake top that I can actually ink them up separately, and it'll stamp just fine. In between the steps, if you want to clean off your stamps after you use them, you can go ahead and do that. It's not absolutely necessary. But you might get some ink down on your foam pad, so put a piece of scratch paper or one of your gridded templates or something to catch the over inking if you're not cleaning off your stamps. But it's just as easy to go ahead and clean your stamps off. Oh wait, so I already positioned my cupcake top, so once again make sure that's down in the corner, and then I'm going to carefully ink up that cupcake top, not inking the bow, and I'm just going to stamp the cupcake top down over my bunny. And I can remove the masks now, and you can see that you have a nicely masked image. And now I'm going to do the bottom, and once again I'm going to move my piece to the top so I can stamp my bottom. And while I technically don't need the plan because it's pretty easy to see where that cupcake liner is supposed to go, sometimes I have kind of a hard time actually lining it up. So I'm just going to use my plan one last time and lay that cupcake liner down over the lines and pick it up with my MISTI. And then stamp it, making sure not to ink up the bunny. And I'll just stamp that liner, make sure that's in the corner, and stamp the liner. And there we go. So we have our image all done. Now what I can do is leave the circle on the template and go ahead and color it with whatever coloring medium I want. And then all I have to do is when I want to stamp it again, I just come back and stamp everything in the same order. I'd clean off the Memento ink, of course, and then use my VersaFine to ink up the bow, mask it off, move it to the top, ink up the bunny, and so on and so forth. And the neat thing about leaving your stamps on the MISTI is if you decide after you make your card, that came out really nice, I want to make more of that. You can, because your stamps are all placed down already. What you can do is just take your plan off of the template and you get another circle, the same exact size circle, put your ATG adhesive on it, and line those two templates up together, and you're going to make sure that you put that circle down exactly over the other one. And now you have another circle that's perfectly placed to use with the stamps in this alignment. And just to show you, I can ink up the bow. And there it is in the perfect place. And then I can mask it off. And I don't need to use my plan anymore because my stamps are all placed exactly where they need to be. So then I can stamp my bunny. And that's not going to matter. I got a little bit of ink by accident because I'm rushing from the liner, but that's okay. Then I'm going to mask off the bunny. Ink up just the cupcake top. Stamp that down. And move it again. Ink up the liner. And stamp it right into place. And once again, when I remove the masks, I have a perfectly stamped and masked image. And so you can go into mass production with these if you want to. If you don't, you don't have to, but it's handy to know that you can put more than 1 or 2 stamps on your MISTI and leave them there and actually keep doing your card process. So this is the MISTI really helps make masking easier, so I hope some of you will give it a try. I definitely wasn't a fan before, but I think I might be doing more masking in the future because I think the result is really nice. That looks like one big stamp, and I think that's a great look rather than doing it some other way with cutting and layering and everything. Although cutting and layering is fine too, you can get dimension and it's cute too, but sometimes you just want something flat and you can get that by masking. So thank you very much for watching, and please visit my blog over at mycasestudies.blogspot.com.